Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be doing my Week 5 lineup review, talking about my lineups that I made for the Week 5 slate. Talk about my DraftKings lineup. I play on FanDuel as well. I'll go over my FanDuel lineups. And I play on Yahoo as well. We'll discuss those Yahoo lineups at the end of the video. Also, we'll break down the Monday Night Football Showdown slate. Got a game between the Redskins and the Saints. At the very end, after I do the lineup review, I'll quickly go over that Showdown slate and talk about some of my favorite plays, talk about roster construction, how we can construct our lineups for that Showdown slate. But before we do get started, guys, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like on the video. Definitely does mean a lot, and if you are new to the channel and you have not subscribed yet, make sure you click that subscribe button down below. Would really appreciate it. Managed to profit this week, which I thought was pretty surprising considering the guys that I had the most exposure to. I played a lot of Stafford to Tate, a lot of Stafford to Marvin Jones. Did have Big Ben and some of the guys that did well, but a lot of the guys I had some high exposure to kind of struggled. Stafford, Tate being one of them. Boyd, I had some decent exposure to. He didn't have a great game. Tywan Taylor had a lot of exposure to. He was pretty disappointing. I think he only had 5 DraftKings points. I believe Vance McDonald was my highest owned tight end. He finished with 1.6 DK points, and I somehow managed to profit this week. I think I had a few really, really good teams in the play action. We'll talk about some of the good teams, look at those, then we'll talk about some of the bad teams as well. Maybe look at some of the lineups that didn't do that great, talk about maybe where I went wrong in those lineups. But starting up top here, we got a 182 where I had Roethlisberger, Connor, and Juju Smith-Schuster, so sort of a Steelers stack in that lineup. And then ran it back with Mohamed Sanu, who I definitely thought was a little bit of a better play this week. Mohamed Sanu just, in these high total games, he always does well. He's playing more snaps than Calvin Ridley. He was $2,000, $3,000 cheaper than Calvin Ridley. So I like Sanu as a value play. I probably should have played him over Tywan Taylor because they were the same price. But I had more exposure to Taylor. But in this lineup, I went with Sanu. Then I had McCaffrey, MVS, a guy I had a lot of exposure to. He did really well for a $3,300 price tag. Nearly had 20 DraftKings points at $3,300. Great value. Then I had Jimmy Graham as well. TJ Yeldon, one of my highest exposed running backs. And the Browns defense, had a lot of exposure to the Browns defense. But let's see, got a 193, another good lineup. It seems like all my good lineups had Steelers stacks. Ben, James Conner, Antonio Brown in this lineup with Sanu on the other side. Then had the same guys, Yeldon, MVS. This lineup I went with Jared Cook, David Johnson. Browns defense again. Let's see, another high-scoring lineup if I can find one. I know I had a lot of lineups that managed to squeeze in. Got a 178 here. This one was a Cousins to Thielen stack. I think, had Zach Ertz on the other side. I had a lot of that stack. Cousins, Thielen, then with Ertz on the other side. I really like Cousins' price tag this week. I thought he was too cheap. And Adam Thielen, just an absolute monster. Look at Adam Thielen's game log. This dude's been incredible for the Vikings. Getting at least 10 targets a game. He's eclipsed over 100 yards in every single game. Just one of the most consistent options for fantasy. And he really wasn't priced like it, $7,700. A little bit cheaper than some of the guys like AB, Julio, all them. Definitely Adam Thielen, going to be a guy we have to consider every single week, with just how much volume he gets. But yeah, that lineup, Cousins, Thielen with Ertz on the other side, then had Connor, McCaffrey, Tywan Taylor, only 5 DK points. Big disappointment for that lineup. Had MVS, Aaron Jones, Browns defense. Then let's look at some of the other lineups. Maybe there's some other high-scoring ones. 171 here. This one had Stafford and Marvin Jones. Had Connor, McCaffrey, Sanu, MVS in that game. Did sort of a game stack of that game with Stafford, Jones, then MVS and Graham on the other side. Had Sanu, McCaffrey, Connor, Todd Gurley, and Jets defense. So I'm not sure what the cash line was. I think it was 130. So I had a lot of teams that managed to min cash. I had a few teams though that definitely profited pretty big. Those teams with 180, that team with 193. Some of my better teams definitely managed to have a profitable week in the play action. But looking at some of my teams that didn't do that great, a 121 here. This one was solid, stack-wise. Ben to Juju, DJ, McCaffrey were good, but then Tate, Taylor, Vance McDonald, all 3 disappointing outings. 3 guys combined for less than 16 DraftKings points. Really disappointing outings from Tate and Taylor, McDonald as well. That lineup definitely struggled a bit. 128 here, Ben to Juju, Joe Mixon, TJ Yeldon. I did have a lot of exposure to Joe Mixon going into Sunday, and then when we got word that he wasn't gonna play every down, they were gonna limit him a bit. I did lower my exposure to Mixon. I still had 10%. I think going into Sunday, though, I had like 30% Mixon, but then I lowered it, dropped his percentage a bit. I was a little bit concerned about his workload if he was going to get a full workload. He was pretty good, though, for 20 DraftKings points. I don't feel bad about lowering his percentage. He was pretty expensive as well at like 6,900. There were other plays in that price range, like David Johnson, who I pivoted a lot of that mixed exposure to. You had TJ Yeldon for cheaper. Obviously, you had the studs up top you could fit in as well. But this lineup, 128, kind of struggled. Seems like all my lineups that did poor had like Taylor and McDonald. Those were two of my highest exposed players. Here's another lineup that wasn't great. McDonald in it. This lineup had Julio in it, only 11 DK points from Julio. But yeah, I think those are kind of my DraftKings lineup. Those are the lineups that maybe did well for me, maybe the lineups that struggled. This lineup I went with Dalton to Boyd. This was like the only team that I played Andy Dalton that had MG3, McCaffrey, John Brown, Marvin Jones, Jimmy Graham, Tywan Taylor, Ravens D. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to FanDuel. I think that's it for DraftKings lineups. Was a profitable week on DK. I think I like tripled my buy-in. And like I said, I really don't know how I did that because a lot of these lineups were pretty terrible. And a lot of the guys I had high exposure to didn't do that great. But I guess I did have Big Ben in like almost, or not all my lineups, but like he was one of my highest exposed quarterbacks. I know I had a lot of exposure to James Conner, and he crushed. So I still managed to hit on some good plays. But let's go ahead and move on over to FanDuel. Actually, MME'd on FanDuel this week. First time MMEing for NFL. I've been practicing mass multi-entry for MLB. Been doing that for MLB. Did it for NFL yesterday, I should say. We'll talk about those 150 lineups when we get there. But these are my 20 lineups that I play in the snap, usually every Sunday. I usually always hand build these. Did pretty well in the snap. I think I cashed like 15 out of 20, 16 out of 20. So it was a good week in the snap. My best lineup was a 174. It had Cousins to Thielen stack with Ertz on the other side. Like I said, I ran that stack in a lot of lineups. I kind of went full, like, jam them in this lineup. I played Taylor and Valdez-Scantling, who were two very cheap options on FanDuel. And then I just went full jam them in. Played Connor, played Todd Gurley, TJ Yeldon as well. Browns defense, I said I had a lot of exposure to. They got a pretty good outing. But yeah, like this lineup, I went full punt with Taylor and MVS and then loaded up on the studs. This was my best lineup on FanDuel, at least in the snap. Some of my other lineups, I'm not going to go through every single one since I really took a lot of time on my DK lineups. But you can kind of see I stick to the similar plays. I don't really change up my plays much. I did have more Saquon Barkley on FanDuel than I did on DraftKings. But like some of my best lineups were kind of the same sort of core that I stuck to on DK. Did have more Gurley on FanDuel than I did on DraftKings just because he was pretty similarly priced to Melvin Gordon. And a lot of lineups I was able to fit like all three of them in, like Gordon, Gurley, and McCaffrey, as you can see in this lineup. Pretty much if you played like MVS, if you played Taylor, I know Taylor sucked, but if you played Taylor, MVS, and like a cheap quarterback on FanDuel and a cheap defense, you could pretty much play whoever else you wanted to. And that's kind of the strategy I rolled with. MVS was great, Taylor not so much. But yeah, I think that's it for like snap entries. I'm not going to go through every single one because I don't want to take too much time. We'll kind of look at some of my bad lineups, and it was kind of this sort of my bad lineups on DK were the same on FanDuel, like Stafford to Tate was a stack that didn't work out that great. This was a Big Ben to Juju lineup with Julio on the other side, McCaffrey, Yeldon, Tate, McDonald, MVS, Browns D. I did have a ton of exposure to Vance McDonald on FanDuel because he was like near minimum price. He was clearly the best value play on FanDuel. He was 32% owned in the snap. I think I had like 30% exposure, at least in these 20 lineups. In my 150, I think I had like 30% Vance McDonald. Even having 30%, I was still under the field because he was so high owned. But let's go ahead and move on to my 150. These are the 150 lineups I played in the snap, or not the snap, the died, the $1 tournament. My best lineup in this one was a 170. So actually my best lineup wound up being in the snap, which was like a 174. But using a lineup builder to build these 150, I think my highest exposed guys, or the guys I put the most exposure on, was sort of the same guys I've been showing you, like McCaffrey, had a ton of exposure to, MVS, Taylor, Todd Gurley. I lowered my exposure to Mixon. I had like 30% Mixon, but dropped it to about 10%. Once we got that news, he wasn't going to play wasn't going to be an every down guy. But other running backs like Gurley had like 25%. McCaffrey was like 40%. Melvin Gordon was like 30%. I had like 30% of Taylor and MVS, so which allowed me to get the expensive running backs. AB had about 20%, kind of stuck to the studs this week. Pretty much went stars and scrubs in a lot of my tournament lineups and just jammed in the studs and then played the cheap guys that I liked. So knew I had a decent amount of. So yeah, you can kind of see I didn't hand build these lineups. Obviously, it's pretty much impossible to hand build 150 lineups. I used a lineup builder, set my exposures, and sort of landed on some good plays. I didn't have like any crazy scores out of this 150, but I still managed to pull out a profit in the dive. But yeah, you can kind of see like my lineups that did well. But let's go ahead and move on to finally these Sunday Million lineups. I played like 6 lineups in the Sunday Million or 7. Cashed 6 out of 7. None of them like crushed or anything. They pretty much all min cashed. It was still a profitable, I still profited in this contest as well. I'm not going to go through these lineups because they're pretty similar to the other ones I played. Let's go ahead and look at Yahoo very quickly. Yahoo, I managed to squeak out a small profit. Usually this is the site where I do the best because I'm just really good at their site. I feel like I've played on there for a while. I feel like I know the salaries really well. I just know how to construct lineups on Yahoo. And actually had I wouldn't say my worst week, but like out of the 3 sites, Yahoo was the site where I did the worst. Only squeaked a small profit out of their tournament, their $10 tournament. But you can kind of see like the guys I was on, sort of the same guys I play on DK, on FanDuel, had on Yahoo as well. Did have a lot of Taiwan Taylor, which was really disappointing. Him and MVS were like the same price, and I wound up going with Taylor in a lot of those lineups, which kind of sucked because that was a big difference going from MVS to Taylor. You can kind of see I played Taylor in like 6 or 7 out of 10 lineups, which really disappointing. But I did have one lineup that did really well. It was like a 160 something. I think it was this. This lineup did really well. 164. Actually played Watson in that Sunday night game. Watson, Hopkins. Then had Connor, McCaffrey, Boyd, MVS, Njoku, DJ, and Bengals defense. But yeah, I think that's it for Yahoo lineups. If you want to look through these, you can. You can pause the video before I close out the tab. But let's go ahead and go over to DraftKings and look at this Sunday night showdown slate, or not Sunday night, Monday night showdown slate between the Saints and the Redskins. We will quickly talk about this game, talk about roster construction, some of my favorite plays in this game. So we definitely need to talk about Alvin Kamara, who is 12,400 on the showdown slate. We do know that Mark Ingram is going to be back from suspension. He is 7K if you want to consider him on showdown. But the main reason I'm talking about Mark Ingram coming back, because how much is he going to cut into Kamara's workload is definitely a bit of a concern for me. Last year, Kamara really wasn't a workhorse back at all. He got like 15 touches a game. He didn't get like anywhere near 20 touches. But we saw last year when Mark Ingram was out, he got hurt, I know, a few weeks, and Kamara crushed every week. We saw these first 4 games this season with Ingram suspended, Kamara crushed every week. With Mark Ingram coming back, I do have a bit of a concern for Kamara. I don't think he's going to lose 10 touches, but he could definitely lose probably 4, 5, 6 touches, I would say. Right now he's getting about 20 per game. With Ingram suspended, he was getting about 20 per game. That week against Atlanta, he got 31 touches, 24, 31, 19, 17. I feel like that's going to drop to about 15 now. So he was getting about 20, 25 per game on average. I feel like now he's going to get about 15. Ingram's going to get about the same amount as well. But it is Ingram's first game back from suspension, so maybe they ease him in a bit, and maybe Kamara gets more touches, but I don't know if I want to pay $12,400 for Kamara with his workload going to be cut into now. So I kind of like Michael Thomas here. I like him as a pivot off of Kamara, especially if Kamara is going to be really popular. And Thomas is coming off a bad week as well, so maybe he will be low owned. I like the Thomas to Brees stacks on these showdown slate. I will definitely have a ton of them. I'll probably play Brees and captain over Thomas. But Thomas I really like. He's $11,400, $1,000 cheaper than Kamara. And we know the kind of upside this dude has. He could easily go for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's done it multiple times this year. At least he's done it once this year. 89 yards, 2 touchdowns, 180 yards, a touchdown against Tampa Bay. He's got that 100-yard upside. Can easily get the 100-yard bonus. Can get double-digit catches on DraftKings with it being full PPR. Getting 10 catches for 100 yards is great. That's 25 DraftKings points, if I did my math correctly. Or no, 23 DK points when you add in the bonus. Thomas could easily get there. We know Ted Ginn's going to be out for this game, which should lead to Thomas getting a few more targets as well. And obviously, if I'm going to play Thomas, I'm probably going to pair him with Breeze, because if I feel like Michael Thomas is going to have a really good game, that's probably going to be, or that's going to lead to Breeze probably having a good game as well. Especially if Breeze throws a lot of his touchdowns and maybe Kamara doesn't get any touchdowns, then we could really gain some leverage on the field going with Thomas over Kamara. I like that little mini stack. Obviously, it's expensive, so we definitely need to find value, and I think there is value. You could look to the Saints receivers. With Ted Ginn being out, you could possibly consider Cam Meredith, who is $3K. I know a lot of people talk about Traquan Smith, and I think he is very, very cheap. I got to see what his price tag is. He is $1,400 if you want to consider him. I'd probably go with Meredith, because maybe Meredith is more the safer option. He's only $3K. You could definitely look to him as a value play. The Redskins are also going to be somewhat thin at receiver. Josh Doctson doesn't look like he's going to play, so Paul Richardson, Jamison Crowder, if you want to consider them as value plays, I do like them, especially Jamison Crowder. 6,200, I think he really steps up in this game. Josh Doctson not able to play. I feel like we're going to see Crowder get increased targets. He's only seen 4 targets per game through 3 weeks, which is a bit of a concern. But we know this guy definitely has upside. He's got that full PPR upside where he can catch 10 passes. We've seen him do it before. Not with Alex Smith at quarterback, but I think he could definitely do it this year. Could come in this game against the Saints, which does have a little bit of shootout potential, especially playing indoors in the Dome. I think this game could be high scoring. I like a lot of the offenses here. I'm probably not going to use defenses or kickers in this game. Maybe kickers, but I don't think I'm going to use the defenses. I like the offenses a lot. But talking about the Saints, Jordan Reed, if you want to go to him, if you think he gets more of a workload with Josh Doctson out, I could see going to Jordan Reed. He's probably been the best pass catcher so far for the Redskins. He's got 5, 8, and 7 targets through 3 games, 14, 10, and 10 DraftKings points. Reed is 7,800. You do also have Chris Thompson at 8,400, who could definitely be a play. We know he gets a lot of work in the passing game. Got 13 catches against the Colts, just insane. If the Redskins are playing from behind, there's a good chance Chris Thompson's going to be on the field a lot. We could look to him at 8,400. Adrian Peterson, it's a revenge game for him, 7,200. I do like Adrian Peterson with the revenge narrative. And AP, surprisingly, has actually been sort of a workhorse back. He's getting about 20 carries per game, 26 week 1, only got 11 carries week 2, but did get 3 catches as well, and then 19 carries week 3. We know AP, if they get in the goal line, he's going to be the guy they use to, get in the end zone. They're going to use him as a goal line back. They'll use him in first downs, second downs, and then third downs they'll bring in Thompson most likely. I am worried a bit though if the Saints get up early, if they pull AP off the field, bring in Chris Thompson in those passing down scenarios. That concerns me a bit. But if you think that the Redskins can keep up with the Saints, or if you think the Saints could actually have a lead, or not the Saints, if you think the Redskins could actually have a lead here, then I think AP at 7,200 is an option you probably should be on, especially with the revenge narrative. But yeah, that's sort of it for the Showdown slate. Roster construction-wise, I think what I'm going to be doing is most likely playing Breeze at captain, pairing him with Michael Thomas, and trying to get some cheap receivers. So if we go with Breeze and Thomas at 11.4, it leaves us 54.50. So going to a guy maybe like Crowder, Paul Richardson. Let's see if we went Crowder and Richardson. That leaves us 5,400. If we plugged in a cheap option like Cam Meredith at 3K, that would leave us 7,800. So then we could play Jordan Reed. You could play Adrian Peterson if you wanted to do that. If you want to try and fit in both quarterbacks, maybe we get off Crowder, play Alex Smith, and then that leaves us 4,200. Then we could play, if Josh Doctson is able to go, we could play him. You could play one of the kickers if you want to do that. So I feel like that's how I'm sort of going to be constructing a lot of my lineups for this Showdown slate. I play multiple lineups. I don't play just one lineup on these Showdown slates. I will have exposure to Kamara, but he's not going to be a guy that I go heavy on. I'll probably be more on the Thomas Breeze combo than trying to pay up for Kamara. But yeah, I think that's it for the Showdown slate, guys, and I think that's it for my lineup review as well. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the lineup review. Hopefully you enjoyed the Showdown slate analysis. I do appreciate you guys watching the video. It does mean a lot. Make sure you like the video before you get out of here. If you have not subscribed yet, if you're new to the channel, be sure you click that subscribe button down below. And if you do have any questions, you can always hit me up on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT, or feel free to leave any comments down below. Let me know how your week went. Maybe some guys you hit on, some guys you maybe missed on. If you have any questions about this Showdown slate, if you want to leave some of your comments about this Showdown slate down below. Feel free to do that. But yeah, guys, good luck on the Showdown slate. We'll be back again on Tuesday with my Week 6 video. Hope to see you guys then. Peace.